Today we'll be talking about gun rights in India and how right to self defense is important for Indians for a stable and peaceful society. And in addition to that, what gun right models what gun rights models exist across the world and which are the most successful, particularly focusing on how Switzerland is successful and debunking myths that are related to that have been prevailed about the United States gun rights. So these will be our core talking points. And first of all, let's start with the gun rights in India and start with the history. Sir.
Yeah. So one second, just give me one second. You start. I'll just join it. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. So I mean, post-independent India, we haven't had gun rights in this country. But before that, Indians were allowed to own arms till the British decided to, repeal that right, and of which Mahatma Gandhi even famously commented that, it is one of the blackest acts
Yes.
in, yeah. So uh, See, the issue of gun rights never really came up in once post independence. For some reason, I think we just carried forward the British restrictions on gun ownership, and with the exception of the Kodwa community, which actually fought for their rights and were granted a special exemption. India hasn't been very pro giving citizens the right to defend themselves or arm themselves. Uh, the reasons probably are also that the Indian state has always been quite controlling and was also worried about whether citizens would turn against it. So that probably was one of the reason, and the other was basically just like a very socialist nanny state complex where the government's going to take care of everything, and you don't have to worry about it. We'll do everything. We'll take care of everything. I think it was that sort of a mindset. So today, if you want to get a gun in India, it is like super regulated, and again, in some states, it is slightly easier to get it than the other states. But in most of the country, it is an absolute nightmare process. In some states, there are a lot of illegal guns, but if you actually want to go through the legal route, it is difficult. You're also restricted on the types of guns that you can have. There are prohibited bores and non-prohibited bores. So, for example, something like a 9 millimeter you can't have. I think there are only few bores that are actually allowed. On top of that, even after getting a gun license, during election time, you have to go surrender it. If you want to move it from one place to another, again, it is a little bit of a hassle. And you have to, even if you fire any bullets, like for example, if you were just going target shooting or something in your farm or something, you have to produce all the spent casings. Just recently, I think a couple of months ago, people were arrested because they could not show the expended ones, or they could not account for it, so they were actually arrested. So it's like super tyrannical. And I think gun rights are very important, more so in a country like India, where you cannot really depend on the police or the government to actually protect you. We've seen it in Pahalgam, we've seen it in West Bengal during the recent riots. We've seen it in Manipur. So if you depend on the state to protect you, you're as good as dead. The
Yes.
only solution is individuals taking more ownership and responsibility for their own protection, and being a little bit more responsible when it comes to gun policies. I think as citizens, everybody should start demanding it, because if the government can't guarantee your protection, what right does the government have to prevent you from taking a chance at defending yourself? It is not that every time if you have a gun, your protection is 100% assured, but at least it will give you some chance, some fighting chance. I mean, you're at home, suddenly you see some burglars or robbers entering your house. Unless if there's more than one person, even if you are physically fit and can fight, the odds are stacked against you, especially if they have like knives. So yeah, you need the right to defend yourself. And as from the Libertarian Party of India, we are trying to educate people about the importance of gun rights, and hopefully we can produce a change in society where people start demanding for it more, and eventually we will see that implemented in legislation as well.
Yes, and one of the significant aspects about gun that isn't discovered that how much it increases women's safety.
Absolutely. I mean, because see, fighting men usually on average are much stronger than women. So, guns can actually level the difference. And that is the best deterrent against a lot of cases of assault, or either sexual assault or even other assault. Like anybody who's weak, and guns equalize it because it doesn't matter if you weigh 50 kgs or you weigh 100 kgs in your hands, the gun gives you at least an equal fighting chance. So
Yes.
yeah, it is crazy. I mean, a lot of people say tell women go learn self defense and all, which is good, nothing wrong in it. But that is only going to be of so much help. The moment there are like two people, it becomes difficult. And no matter how much self defense what you do, if you are against somebody who weighs like twice or thrice your body weight, then you have no chance at like fighting against them. That is why even in professional sports, like could it be boxing, whatever, there is a weight class for exactly that reason because it is very difficult. So women are automatically at an advantage because of their biology or physiology, whatever you call it, and guns give them fighting chance. And I think if you really care about women's rights, then you can't also say that we will prevent guns because the consequence of that, as we are seeing, is that a lot of women are getting assaulted and they have no way to defend themselves.
Yeah, and they argue both ways. Like somehow since India is a poor country and cannot afford a big police force, so this means naturally need to protect themselves. But somehow India also, but somehow this also means that since India is a poor country and there are a whole lot of illiterate people, so they cannot, so they should not be allowed to protect themselves.
Yeah, I know.
like like they're talking in circles and giving the examples of states who already have during the Jungle Raj era, people used to take turns to protect their localities in Bihar, and during the terrorism era in Punjab, similar thing happened as to take care, like people used to take care of their locality by taking care of their by having guns. And that times gun ownership secret suddenly shot up, and after terrorism was gone, government introduced so many regulations that people started surrendering their guns. But still, the relative safety that people enjoyed during the time of terrorism in Punjab was only thanks to gun ownership.
Yeah, and see, it's also hypocritical because there are a lot of times when the government of India itself has promoted gun use. For example, during the Naxals, the Indian government went and told the villagers, arm yourself. Of course, they sort of sanctioned a sort of a militia in a sense, and that had some other consequences. But the government was basically saying, we can't protect you. You guys arm yourself and you protect yourself. And a lot of people armed themselves and they fought against the Naxalites, and the same thing also happened in Bihar. A lot of villages, people used to arm themselves, and they used to have lookouts and they used to fight. So it was always whenever you look at an incident of these large-scale violence or attacks or some massacre happening, it was always them targeting villages where people weren't armed. So wherever they were armed, they were less common. And even recently, we've seen it in the case of the Manipur violence. Now the government is telling the people, arm yourself because we can't protect you. This after like more than a year and a half of
Yeah.
intense violence. Today the government is saying, yes,
Yeah,
people, you should
this
arm
shows.
yourself.
Yeah, this shows that the people are the government is pretty well aware that guns are necessary for self protection. And this doesn't mean that this all this logic of that no illiterate poor and things or lack of sense, this doesn't make any these are all cop outs basically.
No, I mean, just because the person is poor doesn't mean he'll just start taking a gun and killing everybody, right? I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
also sort of a very classist and nasty thing to say that, just because somebody is poor or because they can't read or write, suddenly they are all violent criminals. So look at that attitude that, some people are pushing. And you will also find this sort of elite attitude coming, especially from these socialists, right? Because these
Yeah.
people are, at one hand they'll say, these people are being discriminated, all that, but literally every single sentence that they speak about them is discriminatory. So poor people are just, what is his crime? He just doesn't have money. Also because of
Yes.
policy socialists created, okay, leave that aside, he can't read. So does that just mean the only thing he'll do is
Yeah,
pick up a gun
yeah,
and start shooting people for no,
yeah.
just randomly he'll go and kill? It's absurd. It's ridiculous. And statements like that should be condemned in the harshest tone possible. It's ridiculous.
And this is given people don't realize that banning something doesn't mean that it goes out of existence. It is like I don't
Absolutely. I
know
mean,
what all pervasive at like the government cannot protect its people, but somehow banning things, things vanish and the government suddenly the country becomes so what is required for world peace is simply passing a legislation that no one will fight.
no, in many parts of India, there are already
Yeah,
criminals who keep buying illegal guns, and there
yeah,
are
yeah.
armed
That's
robbers and all that, right?
yes,
So the
yes,
government hasn't been able to do anything about it, and you can't expect them. It is impossible to do it. And what you're all doing is you are preventing people who legitimately want to protect themselves
yes.
from the
Who
right
are
to
law
do it.
abiding? Who are
Yeah,
law
and
abiding citizens who don't do
and the
anything wrong?
criminals will get some gun illegally. They'll come to your house, they'll take your money, they'll shoot you, and you can't do anything because the law says you're not allowed to do it. So it's putting, law abiding, I mean, good citizens of this
Yeah.
country at a risk while
Yes.
not being able to do anything against the bad actors. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we'll cover that how what about what a whole lot of criticism will come. Oh, haven't you seen school shootings in the United States? Oh no, this is impractical. No, talk about other things. No, we don't need gun rights. Like a whole lot of people have this contention against gun rights. Like it is understandable. Like the justice system in India is definitely weak. So we aren't saying that we'll come and day one we'll just introduce gun rights and then everything will be all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like,
Yes.
we are saying that, tomorrow, just walk into a supermarket and pick up a bazooka.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not the transition at which
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
expect Indian society to go through.
Yes.
Yes, definitely, it will take some time to understand how to handle weapons. So it's not easy. Like, and it is true. Like, even if most of the people, if you handle a gun, there are issues how you should handle it. Your trigger discipline. You should not point it at other
Yes.
people. There's so many things that obviously, if you just go pick it up in a supermarket right away, in a culture where we've been deprived of the ability to build a sort of education around guns or responsible handling it, definitely those issues will come up. But
Yes.
there are simple
Yes.
ways. Just have like insist on a small training class before you pick up a gun, or have community camps, educate people about the rights, and have it. I mean, we do that. Like there are always these yoga camps. There again, all these non-profits organizing this health camps. So do the same thing about gun rights, responsible handling it, how to use it, and
Yes.
yeah, it can be a transitionary process, but I don't think that the whole country is going to just like immediately go into violence just because tomorrow the government legalizes ownership of guns. I mean, there are countries like it's not. See, even look at our neighboring countries. I mean, some of them are like pretty bad in terms of other indicators, but just because they have easy access to guns doesn't mean that just like randomly everybody is going and shooting themselves for like reasons of crime. Terrorism is a different issue where that is like more like a terrorism. That's a different aspect. But in fact, if you look at it in Pahalgam, if those people or the
Yes.
resort
Yes.
people had any guns, even if the
Yeah.
security guards had guns, that attack would not have happened. So even
Yeah.
for
Definitely.
terrorism,
Yes.
in Mumbai, right, during 26/11 attacks, these people went on for hours shooting random places, and nobody could fight against them. And even the police constable who bravely fought them, and I think revealed one of the terrorists and died in the process. Even the cops were not properly armed. Like forget it. Like they have some outdated weaponry, and literally, guy could walk into a railway station with there no guns around, shoot, go into a hotel, and a fancy hotel. Imagine if guns weren't so restricted. I'm sure Taj would have had a couple of armed guards as security, and there would be other people around. Somebody would have stepped in and taken stopped that before it actually got that bad. They had to wait for the commandos to come with guns and the police. Everybody has to mobilize it. A lot of them,
Yes.
in fact, it would have been a
Like
deterrent. Yeah.
yeah. People don't realize how helpless you become. Like power disparity is so high when the other party is armed, and whatever level of brawn you have, you simply cannot outmatch a gun. Like projectile, like swift projectile. We have literally been able to kill elephants with guns. So it equalizes the planes so much. and
Absolutely.
uh, and like like people don't understand that deterrence enables politeness in society rather than polite people don't need guns. It is guns that make people polite. Like if you know that there is mutually assured destruction, then you like it is not like it is like analogy is that like the United States and USSR were talking to each other because both were armed to the teeth and both knew that there was mutually assured destruction if anyone took the first step. So it is better to engage in cold war and indirect confrontation as compared to like when the Nazis went for all-out assault against all the, against the whole world. So like deterrence, the strategic importance of deterrence that is created by the presence of guns in real life situations. That is what will help India and Indians in being much more safer and becoming much more polite in their discourse. But right now it is all about how what people you know and how many people you know. Basically, how many arms, how much brawn you have instead of how many arms you have. And criminals have guns anyways. So any criminal manages to get hold of a gun, like he can rule an area for a really long time. That and these things used to happen in areas where the police were weak, especially when the governments were ignorant of it, like during the Jungle Raj and during the terrorism era in Punjab.
Yep.
So let's let's cover let's talk about the Swiss model and like Johnny Harris. He's an American journalist. He made a good breakdown of like he basically covered the Swiss story, like how Switzerland was able to uh, get guns and how they built a gun culture which is stronger than the United States. Okay, so is the screen visible?
Yep.
Yes.
Of Switzerland, and there's a big festival going on. Everyone has the day off. They're all gathering to have a good time to celebrate guns. It's a shooting competition for teenagers, and they've been doing this for hundreds of years.
Hey, wie ist euer Schießen gegangen?
Ja.
It used to just be boys, but now it's boys and girls, and the winner is deemed the king or queen of shooting.
Erstes Mal Knabenschiessen, gell?
Ja, sehr schön.
Und gerade gewonnen?
Ja.
Wie fühlt sich das an?
Das fühlt sich sehr gut an. Ich bin wirklich stolz drauf.
Yeah, look here. Like he hardly looks 10 or 11 years old, and this boy is learning to handle weapons. So like this is what we talk about when we say culture.
Yep.
Switzerland is a peaceful, neutral country, and yet it is full of guns. The government gives its citizens guns and trains them how to shoot.
Yeah, this is what we meant with the introduction of gun rights. Like people need to be trained. It isn't like you just go and buy. Like people assume that we are promoting the American model, like you just go and buy. No, what we are talking about is that you are trained, then you qualify for a gun.
Village is required to have access to a shooting range.
We have almost as many guns per head or per person here.
And additionally, like the level of hostile neighbors that we have, I think it is not a bad idea to to have
No.
like
Absolutely, especially more so in the border states, but also generally, when you're surrounded by it makes sense to have a really armed population. See, this actually happened during the 1962 China War. In one of the villages, when the Chinese were attacking, the government officer basically just announced, "See, we can't help you. We can't do anything for you. Each man for themselves." And they literally ran away and they just abandoned the people and said, "There's nothing we can do." So the government officer, just like district collector, whoever, he just vacated it and they just ran away, saying that we can't do anything. You deal with it. So it's that you're
we need to sympathize with them because like the government had put all the emphasis on so-called 5-year plan and had given very little emphasis on
Absolutely. No, I
national
mean,
defense.
true. It is just that, it's what can they do, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't have
but
weapons and nothing. But the
yeah, but
basic concept is, that,
but
even
even
even even otherwise, you can't always depend on the government. So there's no harm in you having the right to defend yourself, for a scenario like that.
yes, and not even if you don't even handing them guns wouldn't have made a difference because they weren't trained in combat. Like they would have done
Absolutely,
some random, yeah, they would
of
have
course.
done some random shooting and
I
then
mean, a bunch
send
of
it to.
people with guns who don't know how to use them can't fight off against somebody who's like a professional. Like you can't fight off
Yes,
the Chinese army or the Pakistani army just by just picking up guns and shooting a few bullets, right? You have to be trained for it. But see, the thing is, right now there is absolutely no knowledge or awareness of guns in India, except for there are a few gun enthusiast communities. So in the general perception, and when people say gun culture, they mean it very derogatory. They mean it as if, in fact, US is actually sort of the concerns about US are largely overblown. Okay, so there is crime,
yeah,
and
yeah,
some of the
yeah,
crime
yeah. We'll cover
there is crime in US, and some crime in US happens because of guns. So that they just call it gun culture. According to them, gun culture means people going and shooting up some schools because some incidents happen, or just like some random shootings, which they call mass shootings. So according to them, that is gun culture. What we
Yeah,
mean by gun culture, yeah,
we'll debunk the myths in a sequence.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there is good content out there. But let's first cover the Swiss story
yeah,
first.
yeah. Sure,
As
go
as
ahead.
America,
Back home in the United States, we also have a lot of guns. But the culture around guns is a little different.
The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
The country, Switzerland, proves that there's no need for more gun rules.
Guns the number one cause of death among children in the United States, yet we don't have the will to stop it.
Switzerland has the lowest crime rate in Europe.
That's all we have at this point. God and our gun.
I really want to get to the bottom of this gun culture thing, why these two countries have such vastly different relationships with guns. So I delved deeper than I usually delve, and found myself digging through old literature from Scottish political philosophers and looking into the constitutional archives, talking to Second Amendment experts, talking to military historians from Switzerland, and it's finally all clicked for me, and I want to share that with you. So, buckle up for what is going to be a wild ride through history and an adventure through Switzerland. There's the shooting range, and the targets are on this side. Oh yeah, there's the targets. Oh, I hear them. Holy smoke. So they're literally shooting over the road right there.
Here the people's mind would blow up. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
God, there's people just... Jeez. There are bullets flying over our head right now? Oh my god. That is such a weird feeling. Headed to a shooting competition right now at this shooting range, surrounded by beautiful Swiss mountains. The sound of these guns, my god, it's like a war zone.
oh wow! But it's only 6 rounds.
Yeah.
But it's single loaded, so you always have to. Even
Realize like the cars are right there. You could easily shoot them if you wanted to, if you were standing up. Like, I knew that this existed. I saw the Tom Scott video a few months ago. I thought it was like there was one crazy shooting range in Switzerland that goes over a road. I didn't realize it was common. It's a friendly competition. It's all very wholesome. You see these young kids that are like keeping score, tabulating all of the results. I've been hanging out with the president of one of these shooting clubs, trying to understand a little bit better about what this event and things like this represent for these communities.
the military law tells all the villages that they need to provide a shooting range or a possibility to shoot.
After a while of observing this competition, they told me that it was my turn to shoot. But first, I needed to learn how to use one of these guns.
We got the ammo, military provided at a discount.
Just try again.
So
So you're right-handed?
Yep, I'm right-handed.
How do you
Is there a
aim?
telescope in there? Like, how am I seeing that far down?
No, there's no
There's
telescope.
no telescope.
No.
Oh, that's what makes it.
You're not allowed to use any
Ah.
sights, any optics at any competitions in Switzerland.
Okay, so you're gonna make sure I don't hit any of these cars.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Now you're not able to see any cars anymore.
Nope, no more
Okay,
cars.
so no more cars. No more problems about that.
Yes.
Maybe move a little bit further. Yeah. You're ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now it's loaded. It's ready to shoot.
Oh my
Okay.
god. Okay.
Normally we train how that works. But you hit the target.
I hit the target.
Yeah.
That's good.
You
Okay.
can actually hit the target. That's good.
Oh,
now-
there we
Now
go.
we saw it.
I'm getting better. As I shot in my first gun competition, I was surprised that my instructor kept telling me to relax, to breathe, to turn inward.
Exactly.
Yeah, that felt
Now
way
we
more
hit
relaxed.
the 10.
Oh, there we go.
Here we go.
Wow. I turned inward, relaxed, and I hit the 10.
Yeah.
Sharpshooter over here. Wow, this is addictive. I definitely see, I could do this all day.
So this is like relax. You turn your focus from
It's great. Guns, glass bottles.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not a gun person, but I'm like, by how peaceful and celebratory and wholesome this all was. So much different than the way guns are presented in the USA. So how did we get here? The story of Switzerland starts here. Well, actually down there at that lake in a little green valley where a group of people came together and made a promise to each other 700 years ago. And with that promise came a myth. The hero's name was William Tell, and legend has it that one day he refused to bow down to the king's local leader. It was a daring act of disrespect. So as punishment, the overlord forced him to shoot an apple off his own son's head. Tell aimed his crossbow carefully and released. He made the perfect shot. He continued to defy the ruler and eventually inspired the tribes in this region to launch a rebellion. Tell eventually shot the ruler dead, and the rebels would go on to win their independence, banding together to start the confederacy that would become Switzerland. They first made an agreement that they would protect one another, but instead of forming a full-time standing army run by a king, they would arm and train ordinary people to fight. So not an army at all, but rather a militia.
Yeah, see, this would have made the story a whole lot easier. Like if we had a similar story, a similar version of this story is shared by the United States, like people rebelling against a tyrannical government and ensuring their freedom. So this can play out we didn't have this story, and so our the framers of the constitution were not that in favor of gun rights.
I'm now going into a shooting range that is in the mountain, in a dugout bunker. Very Swiss. It's mind-blowing room.
Yeah.
Vibration of your.
So back to 1600s Europe, where Switzerland remained this one peaceful confederacy protected by its citizen militia. Meanwhile, in the rest of Europe, greedy kings were using their huge standing armies to conquer one another, while Switzerland stood by training its citizens in the ways of war. Swiss citizens got so good at fighting that the Pope hired them as his personal protectors. Other empires would even hire Swiss soldiers to fight their own wars. But Switzerland itself remained almost entirely out of these conflicts on the continent. Eventually, European thinkers start to notice this peculiar Alpine confederacy, Switzerland, this place that trains their citizens to fight, and miraculously showed that you can have a republic, even in Europe, a sea of monarchy and kings.
I've been reading a lot of old European political literature, and you start to see this phrase pop up to describe how Switzerland defends itself, using a well-regulated militia. I saw this term a lot when I was looking through this old literature.
Around 1610, this British diplomat goes to Switzerland and gawks at their well-regulated militia, how they can overturn their government at pleasure because they all know how to fight.
By the way, back in the 1600s, well-regulated militia meant a well-organized or efficiently run militia, not regulated in the way that we think of it today. But yeah, the idea was if you arm everyone in your society and you train them, that's actually the key to the best defense and the best preservation of freedom for the people, not just the king.
Yeah, and this is the most important statement that people need to realize.
Yep.
This idea of a well-regulated militia spread across the ocean to a group of British intellectuals who were secretly conspiring to overthrow their own king.
In 1776, they declared independence, using their own well-regulated militia to fight off a tyrannical king and his standing army. As they fought this war, a leader from Switzerland wrote to Benjamin Franklin, suggesting that this new rebel experiment called the United States should become sister republics with Switzerland. The Americans somehow won this war and got to work designing their new country. They sat down in a hot church-looking building to draft the document that would be the foundation of this experiment, a system free of kings. The founders studied the political systems of Greece and Rome. They studied the British Magna Carta, Native American confederacies, European philosophers.
But then there was John Adams, one of the founders who was kind of obsessed with Switzerland at this time. He studied their system, and he was amazed at how their militia worked, how they required everyone to have a gun and to have ammo, and they wouldn't let them get married unless they did. He wrote all about this in a treatise on different government systems right before he wrote the Constitution with his fellow co-founders. Switzerland was a model. It was the republic that had resisted tyranny and been able to stay free in a Europe full of kings. And when it came time to write the actual Constitution, you can see that a militia was enshrined in the Constitution itself. In the Constitution, the role of the militia is to protect the government, to protect the country from invasion or insurrection. And then after the Constitution, it became time to draft that sacred list of the most fundamental rights that would ensure that the American project remained free and full of liberty. The first of these 10 amendments would be freedom of speech and of expression, assembly, religion, and the press. But right after that, they write the Second Amendment, and it's about the well-regulated militia being vital, being necessary for the security of a free country. So to have a militia, the people must have arms. They must have a right to have guns. So now you have the Constitution, the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment, and then a few years later, the well-regulated militia idea got enshrined in law when one of the first Congresses passed a law that said that every man doesn't just have the right to have a gun, but is required to have a gun and ammo and must train to use it so that the president could call on its armed citizens as its mechanism for defense. This whole legal framework was very clearly yes, you can have guns, but only if you are ready to use them to defend our country from invasion or insurrection. And sure.
Yeah, and I don't understand why we have belligerent neighbors in our neighborhood. Why didn't right at the foundation we had hostile country in both sides of our borders, and this didn't come across the framers of the Constitution never gave much thought to it. If you go through the archives, you are they simply didn't care about it, and this was discussed time to time, and Hindu Mahasabha put out in their constitution the right to hold guns, and it was Hindu Mahasabha, right? And then and the British took it away in the 1857 just because learning from their failures in taming them in the United States. So
Yeah, no, I think the framers of a constitution were sort of extending this overall philosophy to every aspect of our society, that it is always the government that should do everything. So the citizens
Yes.
are incapable, they cannot do anything, they don't know anything. We are the wise people, we are the elite, and we will make the decisions for everybody. They can't
Yes.
protect themselves, they can't run their
Yeah.
businesses. They can't even argue with the shopkeeper about what price to pay, because they're all fools, and everything will be exploited. So I think it was that mindset. And of course, then I think the Indian state in itself was also worried about threats to its own existence from groups of people, or even citizens revolting against it, because uh, history of post-independence India, our government has always been pretty tyrannical. So I think for them also, in a way, it is like an insurance scheme to keep the people weak, so that they don't have to worry. They'll come, they'll massacre people, they'll do anything, and people will be powerless. So I think that is also one of the motivating reasons why they didn't really push for gun rights.
like like even if you give heed to the logic that, like, okay, the country, right, the republic is right now is not that strong, we won't hold together. Okay, like
Yeah.
yeah, we are a diverse country, and whole lot of diverse vested interests would try to fight over, okay, same seems sense. But but they should have realized that at a certain point in the future, the country will unite, and the tyrants will emerge. And how do we, like, they simply, there was no thought was given to the idea that how do we protect the country from tyrants. Like you gave emergency powers, but didn't introduce a measure like which ensured that people can fight the emergency.
Yeah. They don't want to. So, in fact, that is the
Yeah.
problem. The government doesn't want people to have the power. The government wants power
Yeah.
over every single aspect of our life.
Yeah,
So,
so it was basically a fluke of history that Indira Gandhi's Prime Minister Indira Gandhi changed her mind and revoked the emergency. Otherwise, we would have continued in the emergency. Like the bootlickers would have continued to follow her, toe her line, and like resistance would have, she would have crushed resistance. So, and the fall would have continued. But anyway, like that history could have turned out anyway. But leaving it on the judgment of one individual being righteous, like how you cannot roll the dice on that.
yeah, yeah. And we've seen the whole imposition of emergency itself as a tyranny.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and when even you discard the idea of a democracy, and then you are able to do whatever tyrannical stuff you want, the people have no power to do anything. They're just helpless, because, on one side, you have the government with an entire armed machinery, and then you have people armed with just basically sticks. So the odds are against the favor. So the reason why the government doesn't want Indians to own guns is, one, they're also worried about threats to their own authoritarian and tyrannical impulses, and two, they also have this idea that people are incompetent, they're stupid, they have no ability to take care of themselves, they'll all end up being criminals. Sort of a projection that they do onto the people. So I think these are probably the two main motivating reasons why the government doesn't want citizens to have guns.
Sure enough, George Washington had to actually use this. There was this rebellion in Pennsylvania over taxes, and George Washington called up his armed citizens to march and tamp down on these rebels, and it totally worked. The militia system was working for this young nation to ensure its freedoms with an armed citizenry.
Yeah, and like they also like people here don't, I think, don't know, don't even understand what the concept of a militia is. And like yeah, instability would have definitely come. But like if the people wanted the united, like you should have trusted that there would have been enough people who would have understood that a united India is way better than a diverse one. Like you were able to fight the British uniting the country, but somehow when the country unites, like there the people who suddenly cared about unity would suddenly shift to like secessionists. Like this logic doesn't come out consistently.
Yeah.
They were much more. I think they were much more interested in imposing tyranny and keeping power to themselves as compared to
Yeah, I
sharing power
mean,
with the people.
pretty much most governments are that way. The whole concept of
Yeah.
itself is, yeah. But yeah, we'll save that for another day. But
Something Switzerland had been doing for centuries. Guns started out as a symbol of collective security, as collective defense, armed citizens ready to stand up to defend the country. But needless to say, things kind of changed when it came to guns in America. So how we got from that to this is the next part of this video. And in my mind, it's the most interesting version of this story because it shows us how Switzerland and the United States diverged so severely from this militia culture. Okay, but before we get to that, I want to show you more about Switzerland today. Show you what it looks like when a country sticks to an actual militia system as their primary tool for national defense. Okay.
To better understand gun ownership in Switzerland, I visited a member of the Swiss Army.
Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Can I see your gun?
That's why we came.
That's why I'm here.
I want to play some. Where's Waldo? Where's the assault rifle?
Oh my gosh, I already see it. So you just have a gun in your.
You want to carry it?
You want to carry it? What's interesting to me is like for
Yeah, imagine that having that being in your house.
you, this is like no big deal. For me, this is a giant gun. Like this is I don't handle guns. Like I held a gun like this for the first time like 2 days ago. For the very first time.
Yeah, and remember that he is American. This isn't like something he isn't that isn't available in his country. But like guns are heavily regulated already in the United States. People don't talk about it.
yeah.
In my life.
No way.
Yes.
Actually.
I'm an American.
Yeah. I was about to. That's very uncliche.
Yes.
Switzerland still has a militia. Every able-bodied man in Switzerland is given a uniform and a gun and required to join the military.
So, and this is in the Constitution. It's written there that every male can be not only forced to do military service, but also forced to make more. So instead of 21 weeks, I did 37 weeks. And in total, I have to do like 450 days.
Up until the 90s, you would go to jail if you refused to do this. Now you just have to pay 3% of your income if you don't.
I was also very against the military, and I went reluctantly.
One of the first things you do in this initial training is you come to one of these clubs and you learn to shoot.
It was kind of scary, actually, because it's all like 18 to 20-year-old guys, and it's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to shoot this gun now. And it's like, here's ammunition, here's the rounds, and now you do what you learn.
After the recruits complete their training, they return back to their normal jobs, to their normal lives, but they keep their firearm with them in their home. And then they're required to come to one of these private clubs every year to practice shooting.
Die Armeeangehörigen müssen jedes Jahr eigentlich so obligatorisch schießen und wir tun eigentlich mit dem Staat arbeiten, oder?
It's called the obligatorisch. So it's obligatory or mandatory for people to shoot.
This is my shooting book. Every time I shoot, there is.
Yeah, like how do answer to the question that how do you create discipline about gun ownership? This is how you create discipline about gun ownership.
Yeah, it has to be a cultural thing that is reinforced in schools, in community programs. You have to build it up. It won't happen overnight. You have to build it up, and gradually allowing that is a good way to transition our society into an armed and polite society.
Yeah, and like there is no mention of any like per capita income or all that hula nonsense. Like it is simply about building a culture where people are trained.
Very simple. Right now in India, the Kodavas, all of them have guns. They're not going and killing each other all the time, right? So these people constitutionally have the right to own guns, a special privilege given to them. Now, are we saying that Kodavas are going and shooting off their schools or and it's not like these people are all very rich either, right? I mean, they're not poor, but these people are, it's not like every Kodava is like super rich or, their per capita income is higher than even some poor guy in the US, right? So why? It's all about culture, and you can build culture through these sort of interventions.
Yes.
A little report, somebody has to sign it. Of course, when you go shooting, just take this out. It's just like
Wow.
And then you go to the public transport just like that.
You're just
You
on,
buy it.
just walking around on the train with your gun?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's actually similar to what the United States National Defense Strategy looked in like the 1800s, where every able-bodied man had a gun and was required to use it, required to be ready to defend the country from invasion or insurrection.
Yeah, and like this is pretty national. This dialogue is pretty nationalistic in its tone. It isn't like you can't be like, what sort of pseudo nationalism are you promoting if you are not interesting your citizens with protecting the country?
Yeah.
So you are basically saying that, oh, I am the only national in this country, and rest of all the people are anti-nationals. So what kind of
Exactly. So almost every comments are like that. It's like, I agree with gun rights, but vast majority of Indians are dehatis, this, that, and all. Somehow, I think that is a sort of a very elite mindset that a lot of people have, thinking that, I'm cut from a different, cloth. Everybody else is like that. See, incentives also shape a lot of cultural issues. The problem is when there is no disincentives for bad behavior, then it gets encouraged. But otherwise, people just won't go shooting each other randomly. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it isn't like when you own a gun, suddenly the laws goes away.
Yeah. I mean, people have cars, right? So with a car, you can just go, and we've seen so many incidents in Europe and US where people have taken their cars and just driven into things, right? Or, there's so many things, you can just uh, do a Molotov cocktail, right? All it requires is basically a bottle and some fuel. Why aren't people just taking so many bottles, putting fuel and it, lighting it on fire and throwing it? In fact, it can actually do more damage in a very crowded place, right? So why isn't that happening? Why aren't people doing that? It's
Yeah, and like this spurious correlation is made that our violence is low because gun ownership is low. No, exactly. Like people are civilized here. For we have very little our per capita police presence is like abysmal, and still
yeah.
people like relatively we are in a relatively peaceful society.
Yeah, and even when you look at the police guys, most of them are not even armed, and it's it's not that people are afraid that the police guy will come with a gun or something. It's just that most people in general don't want to just go and commit random criminal acts, and the
Yeah.
criminals who do, they're going to do it anyway. Whether they have a gun,
Yeah,
they don't have a legal gun,
and
they'll just buy one
And
illegally.
how like you talk about all that Hindu great nation Indian civilization. Like I agree, India is a great civilization, but somehow you don't trust the people who live in the civilization. But the civilization is great.
Yeah, I mean, there is no consistency, there is no logic. It just basically feels. Our
Yeah,
entire political discourse is basically feels.
yeah.
Everything, whatever I feel
Vibes,
is,
vibes.
yeah, vibes.
Yeah,
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like vibe coding, we have vibe politics, and that's
yeah.
exactly what's happening. It's not based on evidence, there is no philosophy behind it. It is just like whatever.
Part of this is also being able to fight if it would be necessary, just to protect our country. And this self-defense thinking is part of our people and from Switzerland.
What Switzerland doesn't have that we have in the United States is a Second Amendment, an articulated, unambiguous right to have guns. Instead, guns are articulated mostly as a duty to protect the country. And then, secondly, comes the privilege to use guns, to compete with them, to own guns, etc. For them, the duty came first.
We have a tradition of more of a liberty tradition, and there it's more of a responsibility tradition.
Essentially, everybody has to go. So this is kind of like one thing that unifies a lot of the male population here. And it's just like, you can meet a guy, and if he's done military service as well, you can talk for hours and hours and hours on end.
And this to me makes all the difference. Like these two different purposes of guns in society, whether they are a right for individuals or the duty of the collective. I think this is a major factor that divides these two gun cultures. If you could describe Swiss shooting culture in 3 words, what would those words be?
Wettkampf, Kameradschaft, Tradition.
And this is where it all clicked for me. I had thought that Switzerland's gun culture was the product of smart laws and gun policies. But being here, it was becoming clear that it was the militia system that was at the root of all of this. The requirement for every man to learn how to shoot as the main strategy for collective national defense, turning guns into a symbol of community and celebration, the center of large festivals all over the country, where Swiss traditions are celebrated with firearms at the center, like that teen shooting competition in Zurich, or this important shooting festival that takes place at the foot of the Alps along a beautiful Swiss lake, the place where the founders of Switzerland formed their confederacy in 1291.
You have so many members of the community coming out and participating in them. You're going to have fun. The shooting is fun. They'll have music. After you're done shooting, you can have some beer or wine, and it's a family affair. And so they kept that alive.
Das Treffen dort, das untereinander mit sich zusammensehen und so weiter. Und da hat es alle dort, dort hat's von Arbeitern, von Angestellten bis zu Unternehmern, dort sind alle dort. Also es ist eine Gemeinschaft. Oder?
Okay, we're at yet another gun club, and once again, this gun club.
Well, it is interesting to see that they have made a collectivist argument for gun ownership. Like Americans have made an individualist argument, but they have made a collectivist argument. Like guns are necessary for defense, like national.
Yeah,
defense.
but if you look at the historical context also, right? Even Nazi Germany was afraid to actually invade Switzerland because everybody was armed, trained, and then they also built all these bunkers with like these weapon caches distributed everywhere. So if they had attacked, they would have had to take heavy casualties, so they didn't dare. And now look at Switzerland today. I mean, it is in like probably one of the safest parts of the world. I mean, it's surrounded by France, Italy, Austria, Liechtenstein. So they're all like peaceful, stabilized countries. None of them are gonna invade Switzerland. But still, the culture still exists. The argument is no longer that there is some neighboring countries that may come invade. I mean, historical situations can change, but in generally it's in a very stable part of the world. But still, it's not like people saying we don't need it anymore. Let's get rid of this. They're not doing that because it's now ingrained in their culture.
Has a target that goes right over the top of a highway. I'm here to continue to learn what the deal is with Swiss gun culture and to see if I can get a better score than I did last time. Okay, so this is the gun we're shooting today. Beginner's luck continue. Oh, here. Beginner's luck. Just mowing the lawns at once. Super a magnet activity and a gathering place for the community. A collective activity and competition that everyone in the community can enjoy. I'm so used to guns being associated with danger and division and politics and fear, but here it just has such a different feel than what I'm used to. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. This is really good.
It's been a really enlightening experience visiting all these shooting ranges, and what it's taught me is that guns here in Switzerland are a totally different thing than they are in America. Like they're a completely different symbol. They have a very different purpose. They have a very different meaning. And that's kind of surprising to me because remember that the United States was founded on a lot of the same paradigms as Switzerland when it came to having a militia and having firearms in society as a form of collective defense. So to understand how these two gun cultures so greatly diverged despite having similar roots, you have to understand what happens after the Constitution, after the Second Amendment.
I have the right to protect my family and myself.
What do you think about American gun culture? Like, what's the view?
Bonkers. Like, the fact that everybody has a gun in America, it would make me feel uneasy. And I'm used to being in the proximity of guns and around. I don't know how you guys do it.
And if he tries to take our guns, he can take them from our cold, dead hands.
There has been a shooting at a synagogue.
Get off of my porch right now.
Gun control, all it's going to do is take the guns out of the people that obey the law.
3 people are killed in Jacksonville, Florida today after what appears to be a racially motivated hate crime.
So after its independence, the US quickly learned that while a militia is great for defense, deterrence, and neutrality, it is not good for one thing: conquest. Beginning in the 19th century, the US expanded west very quickly. They fought other European colonists and Native Americans for their land. They would eventually fight each other in a civil war. These kinds of operations were too big for militias made up of everyday citizens. Instead, they needed to establish and fund a centralized, professional standing army. And this was just the beginning. By the time the 1900s rolled around, the US had grown into something that Switzerland never was, and probably never will be: an expansionist empire, using its sprawling permanent military to wield influence around the globe. By the middle of the century, it would become the largest and most powerful military to have ever existed. Because the US had a huge standing army, it did away with a lot of the original laws requiring people to join the militia. And now, without a duty to form a militia to protect the country from invasion and insurrection, like the Constitution said, they were left with just the second half of this amendment: the right to bear arms, and how it should not be infringed. Guns started to become more of a personal tool, a tool to pursue their American.
Yeah, like this is a key. This is a key. This is key to like how do you frame gun ownership, and like it in Switzerland it is like, as he said, that it is much more of a duty in service of national defense, but America got rid of the like duty part, and it simply became a right.
And no, I think on this the person in the video is not exactly accurate, because the US has a very active private militia scene. There are probably around 150 to 200 active groups across the country. They all associate basically enthusiasts, and they come together, they train. There are private militias who, a lot of them happen to be ones who want to defend themselves from the tyranny of the state. It still exists. It's not that private militias are gone. Of course, definitely the efficacy in modern warfare, if like some countries invading with jets, can a private militia compete within the current framework of just like, owning normal weapons? That of course is a problem, but it is not also true that the US doesn't have any militias. It does have, the thing is the military has so much power now that they don't feel any need to call the militias. Like, forget the expansionist invasions of the US, and let us assume that the US is not doing that.
Yeah.
Let us say, for example, Russia or some country is invading. The US has so much military. They also have the National Guard. The government has created all these other divisions, which historically would have been handled by a call from the militia. So that has changed, but it is not that militias don't exist. They still exist. Private militias, probably about 150 to 200 groups spread across the country. A lot of them are like very Second Amendment loving, groups.
No. Yeah, but like they lost the cultural significance. Now, right now, it has all become about joining the army.
Yeah, I mean, yes, culture shifts also happen because of the way the government created these incentives. They started, giving free college, everything you joined in the military. So instead of, instead of creating more like volunteer groups, they were at one point of time even conscripting. So basically, people were forced to go and fight in wars. It was no longer about defense. See, it is very, people voluntarily, if you train, you want to defend your country. But just because all of us get together and train to defend our country, tomorrow if the government says go and attack some random country in Southeast Asia, we'll obviously say hell with that, right? So you won't be motivated. So the requirement of the American expansionist schemes were not satisfied by militias. When it comes to defense, yes, but if you want to go and invade other countries, people are saying like, we don't want to die just because you guys want have some political aims in other countries. If somebody is really a threat to our country, we'll defend ourselves. We love our country. We'll fight for our people. But we are not going to go die in Vietnam for some vague political goals. Screw that. So the government has shifted the whole the way the whole culture went from volunteer militia defense to the current mess that it is in.
Dream to hunt, to protect their family, to exterminate.
It's more like the Rambo style. It's not like I'm going shooting at the target. You don't go shooting somewhere in the woods or in the forest. You just don't do that. You go to a shooting range and you get part of the community, and then your goal is not just to shoot wherever there is. So your goal is to get better. And your goal is not just to shoot around.
Guns continued to take on a more personal symbol in the 60s and 70s when more and more Americans were losing trust in their government. This was also right at the time when crime was skyrocketing in America.
Without this duty for collective defense, guns became more and more a symbol of personal defense from all of this crime, personal liberty, and a symbol of this growing anti-government sentiment. And as a result, the number of guns in America soared. The NRA, which, remember, after the Civil War started as a largely non-political group that was meant to just help Americans be more responsible and better marksmen, they got taken over in the 70s by a group of hardliners who wanted to change the agenda of the NRA, turning it into a political lobbying group that was set on reshaping the way Americans thought about the Second Amendment and making sure that no legislation ever made it through that curtailed gun rights. They began pushing an interpretation of the Second Amendment that was about individual protection, a right to bear arms so that you can protect yourself, and trying to de-emphasize the connection to a well-regulated militia as the purpose for this right to bear arms.
In the face of this relentless onslaught of gun control schemes, you're the reason the Second Amendment still stands. You're the tip of the spear.
You're the ones that make it possible for us every day to defend this freedom.
And it totally worked. The Second Amendment became more and more a guarantee that everyone can have guns to protect themselves and their family, having nothing to do with protecting the country. After all, we had the biggest military in the world. We didn't need a militia anymore.
Don't let Hillary leave you protected with nothing but a phone. The NRA Political Victory Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This interpretation of guns in the amendment would become solidified in a 5-4 vote in the Supreme Court in 2008, when the court ruled that the Second Amendment guaranteed people to have guns, even when those guns have no relationship to an armed militia. So this is why the United States has more guns than any country on earth, because the courts have ruled that guns are an individual right, a right to bear arms. Every year, 20,000 murders occur with a gun. Thousands of children.
Oh, now he's making like he's trying to make a case
No,
Like,
he's
now
talking
he has
just
gone-
about, he's gone off the rails. So what's happening here is talking about the number of people killed, but he doesn't talk about the number of people who were saved, the defensive gun uses, which people estimate run like in hundreds of thousands every year, are
let's-
people who live, who are just alive because they could defend themselves with guns. So
let's
Hello, you're watching ABC News Now. I'm Dish. He's John characterizing it, but that stricter gun laws.
You've probably heard that America has the most mass shootings in the world. That's often given as a reason for more gun control. But economist John Lott looked into that claim, and he says it's a myth based on one bogus study.
The United States has the most mass shootings.
By far, the most public mass shootings.
You don't see murder on this kind of scale with this kind of frequency in any other advanced nation on earth.
Where'd that claim come from? Obama and everyone else base it on.
A study done by University of Alabama professor Adam Lankford.
University of Alabama professor Adam Lankford.
This is Adam Lankford.
I studied 171 countries for more than 40 years, 1966 to 2012. And essentially the answer was Not surprisingly, the United States has by far the most public mass shooters.
His claim received coverage in hundreds of news stories, but all these people were misled by Langford. Langford's study claimed that since 1966, there were 90 mass public shooters in the United States, more than any other country. Langford counted 202 shooters in the rest of the world. Langford claimed,
Yeah, like this was a dead giveaway. Like, what is he talking about?
complete data were available for 171 countries. But how did Langford find every shooting in all these countries, most of which don't speak English? And how did he find all the cases in the years before the internet? Few governments collect this data. Finding complete data for mass public shootings in just one developing country, say India in the 1970s, would be an incredible feat. Many of these shootings would have been reported only in local outlets, in the local language.
Yeah, so he wants us to believe that no one in India during the 1970s, when all that emergency stuff and all that lawless
Oh,
stuff.
dude, what about all the Naxal shootings and all the insurgencies and all? Are they claiming that all of that was more than what happened in the US?
Yeah, like what sort of bullshit did people buy?
That shooting at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut.
On the other hand, United States mass public shootings are well documented and hard to miss. If Langford undercounted foreign cases because he missed finding old newspapers or had trouble with language barriers, his paper's entire conclusion that the United States had the most mass public shootings would fall apart. Many journalists and researchers asked Langford for his data, not only to refuse to share a list of his cases, or even the number of shootings he found in each country, which are nowhere in his paper. He even refused to share an explanation for how he found those cases. That's academic malpractice. Asked if he used foreign languages to search for these shootings, Langford stated, "My data were not limited to English language searches." Asked what languages he used, Langford refused to provide that information. "This is all the assistance I can provide at this time," Langford said. Look, I've researched crime for decades, and I've published dozens of peer-reviewed academic articles on the subject. Langford won't even respond to my emails with simple questions. Now, maybe he doesn't want to talk to me because I'm well known for my research, more guns, less crime. But Langford has refused to share his list of shooters and methods, even with strong gun control advocates. This all seemed very suspicious to me. So the think tank that I run, the Crime Prevention Research Center, researched it. Unlike Langford, we took a lot of time to find all the foreign cases we could. We even got translators to identify cases. Using the same definition of mass public shooters Langford used, 4 more people killed in a public place, not part of some other type of crime, we found that he grossly undercounted foreign attacks. We counted well over 3,000 shooters, at least 15 times more shooters as Langford claimed.
31% of total shooters, despite the fact that we only have 5% of the world's population.
Of the 86 countries where we have identified any mass public shootings occurring, the United States ranks 62nd. Norway, Finland, Switzerland, and Russia are European countries with significantly higher rates of murders from mass public shootings.
The explanation is firearm ownership rate.
When Langford's data are fixed, there is no relationship between gun ownership rates and mass public shooters. There's a lesson here. Langford's critical but simple error could have been picked up if journalists had only demanded his data and methods before publicizing his study. Journalists should learn to be skeptical. In the meantime, we should all be skeptical of news coverage of studies like this that simply confirm what journalists and people want to hear.
Before releasing this video, I also asked Langford for his data and methods for finding shootings in foreign language media. Langford would not provide the information.
Yeah, this one is really
Do you
important.
carry a gun? Bad idea, says Hollywood. Countless TV shows portray good guys who try to stop crimes with their own guns as fools.
Citizen's arrest, drop your gun!
The wise police officer sums it up.
Leave it to a good guy with a gun to really screw things up.
Liberal politicians agree.
A good guy with a gun will stop the bad guys with a gun. It doesn't hold up.
It doesn't, say experts, the media feature.
Good guy with a gun statistically isn't realistic. It's an adolescent rescue fantasy.
An adolescent rescue fantasy? Now, I'm no gun person. I was raised among lefty gun haters. I assumed Hollywood and the media told the truth. But then, 17 years ago, I hired the best data analyzer I know. That very tall guy on the left, Maxim Lott, here talking to the nearly as tall John Lott, his father, a criminal justice researcher who wrote this book. More guns, less crime? I was skeptical, and some researchers questioned Lott's data, but I've come to believe Lott is making a good point. In places where bad guys fear a good guy might be armed, crime tends to fall. Often just showing a weapon is enough to stop an assault. Police don't track such events, but these days some are posted on the web. Here an employee grabs her gun and the robber runs away. And again here.
3 robbers caught on camera breaking into a home in Atlanta. The men scramble to escape as the woman chases them.
When a civilian tries to stop one of these instances, they're overwhelmingly successful.
So why do all these TV shows lecture us about how it doesn't work?
The gun control groups brag about working with the screenwriters and the producers for the shows.
This group even boasts about its partnership with Hollywood and how they're consulted on scripts.
There's major star power behind an effort to rewrite the script on how guns are used in Hollywood.
They think they're making us safer because they believe FBI reports that say shooters being killed by citizens is rare. Why does the FBI say that?
They're simply missing a huge number of cases.
For example, well, the FBI includes the famous Pulse nightclub shooting.
At least 50 people are dead.
1 week afterwards, there was a similar attack at a nightclub in South Carolina.
There, a concealed carrier took down the shooter.
Yeah, and this is like things not happening is not reported in the news. So like even people
Absolutely.
ignore it.
The defensive gun users is estimated to be around anywhere between 250,000 to 500,000 a year, a conservative estimate. Some people have.
It got no news coverage.
Yeah.
49 people being killed is going to be a bigger story than 3 people being killed.
I understand.
Yeah, this is just sensationalism creating problems for a really good system.
But the guy still had like 125 rounds of ammunition on him when he was stopped. You would think at least some of the news coverage would at least mention, here's another case that almost turned out to be the same, but it was stopped.
Also, remember the Parkland shooting?
At least 17 people are dead in Parkland, Florida.
Just a few months later, in Titusville, Florida, there was an elementary school that was having a big event at a park right next to the school. Had hundreds of students there, and a man came up, started firing his gun.
Police say the gunman was then shot by someone else who had a legally concealed weapon.
And was able to seriously wound the attacker and stop him before he was able to go and kill anybody.
The bystander saved a lot of people's lives, says the police. But I never heard about that. Local media covered it, but hardly got attention beyond that. The FBI somehow also missed it. At crimeresearch.org.
Yeah, FBI really cares about the security of the people. Yeah, like their institution. Yeah.
Lott lists cases where bystanders stopped shootings, cases that the FBI often ignores, like this one.
3 people are dead, several others injured.
Raul Mendez was at a party taking selfies with his pregnant wife. But then a guest at the party began firing at people.
Catches me in the right side of the head. Bullet entered right here, right by my ear, goes straight through my face and out my left eye.
Somehow, Mendez recovered.
I gained consciousness and I unloaded 4 rounds and finished them off.
He probably saved the lives of a dozen people, including his wife and daughters.
Prevented him from, killing those girls.
You always carry a concealed gun?
I always do.
Why?
It's just about being prepared.
The FBI records instances like this, but somehow they have no record of your case.
They're not recording the true numbers, guns actually saved.
It's one of many cases like that the FBI is missing.
It happened. Why wouldn't they include this?
There's a lot of political views that people let infect their data. I had
like specifically talking about this point, like this is not talked about. Like data collection is not an objective process. Like there are a whole lot of subjective values involved in collecting subjective data. Like physics is much more objective in its data collection process. But but when it comes to humanities, data collection process itself can contain a whole lot of bias.
Yeah.
And when you have politically motivated people behind data collection, then they can simply collect data to just with the aim of proving whatever view they pointed anyway. So like last year when this scam happens every year when the exit polls come out. Like last year they had given 400 par, and we all know what happened. So
True.
interactions with the people in the FBI. I had people go and tell me, well, I'm a Democrat, as a response, as if somehow that's how we determine whether or not to fix the data.
The FBI who carry guns are anti-gun. It's just not believable.
I think the people at the top, are more politically motivated than maybe your rank and file FBI agent. If they think that it would go against the narrative that they want to go and push, then they'll fight you.
We asked the FBI about those cases they missed. They responded, their data is not intended to explore all active shooter incidents, but rather to provide a baseline understanding. Seems like they admit their data's incomplete. But the media sure don't.
This kind of outcome is rare.
This is very rare.
No, self-defense is more common than they say, and it does stop lots of crimes.
It'd be great if we could just get all guns to disappear. But the problem is that when you go and you ban guns, it's basically the most law-abiding good citizens who obey them. Every place in the world that's either banned all guns or all handguns has seen murder rates go up.
Why would that happen?
If you're primarily disarming their victims, you make it easier to commit the crimes.
But the so-called experts still say
there haven't been good guys with a gun who stop mass shootings. It's the kind of thing you learn from reading comic books.
I was prepared, and it saved lives. There's no comic book story about that. Those are facts. That's what happened. I was there. I'm sure there's many more out there that'll go unheard.
stories like this do often go unheard in legacy.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So, I think we have covered. We have tried to debunk a whole lot of myths, and if anyone has any questions in the chat, we'll answer them. Do you think Indians should be taught civic sense with strict laws and punishment than guns? Well, maybe obligatory joining the military service. Like there don't seem to be any questions here. Like it was good to see that this shows that how all that you see is not all that exists. So like the data collection bias and all these institutions are basically trying to secure their interests. Like FBI is not actually interested in actual security of the people. They are much more care about how to gain more and capture more and more control over the people, and somehow they can be Superman and save everyone at any time, and they can that movie what was that movie, Minority Report or something, where they preemptively
that Minority Report, yes.
Yeah, they are they will somehow make that system and crimes will go away. So I think we have covered a whole lot of aspects, and we'll continue to advocate for right to self-defense in India. And it won't be an historical aberration like we are talking something completely novel. It was just the elites who were framing the constitution who weren't interested in it, but a whole lot of people understood the relevance of guns and the importance it held for a country, both for self-defense and for individual fighting against the government tyranny. So, if you want, if you cannot be arguments can be made from the both sides, and like if you really want to having a fast judicial system, there is a whole another issue as compared to just saying that, oh, we can't fix that, so let not anyone have guns, and let criminals have the guns, and law-abiding citizens their security and protection go to hell.
No, it's very simple. When people say that, you should ban guns in India, they're effectively saying that you should die if a criminal attacks you. We will not allow you the chance to defend yourself. You have no right to defend yourself. The police, at their own leisure, may or may not defend you at that moment, but you have no right to defend yourself. You may die, but we don't care. Essentially, it translates down to that. Their policy on banning guns is saying that it's tough luck, but you can die, but we will not allow it.
Yeah. So I think now we should end the stream now and continue to advocate.
Right.
So thank you all for joining, and please do let us know in the comments what you think about it. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thanks everyone.